what are some of the important free agency moves in terms of shifting fantasy values that maybe we've talked about the ones on the show that maybe are on the high end that people are all looking at, they're under the spotlight. What are some that may have flown under the radar that, could be tremendous upside this year?
It's boring, but Jamison Crowder signing with Buffalo, I think, could be kind of fun, in a supercharged, pretty pass heavy Buffalo offense. I would assume that Crowder will be the week one slot guy for Josh Allen, even though Isaiah McKenzie was re-signed. But I'm guessing that if they had been committed to McKenzie as the every down slot receiver in that offense, they would have had no interest in Crowder. Instead, they sign him. All Crowder does in any offense he's in is earn targets. Like, he's good at that. And in a Bills offense that passes a lot, in a Bills offense that has created fantasy value at the slot receiver for Cole Beasley, most recently, obviously. I think Crowder could be, like I said, not too exciting, but someone you pick up and you're kind of happy with as a PPR cheat code.
Well, and Crowder, if nothing else, seems like a big upgrade on Beasley. You mentioned McKenzie and some of those manufactured touches, very elite, I think, in that role, has the fantastic speed, can get you the chunk plays after he touches the ball. With those two guys now, does it knock Gabriel Davis a little bit? We know that they play different roles. Obviously, Stephon Diggs in a completely different role as well. But even though the roles are different, there's still going to be only so many targets to go around.
Right. I think it might take a little bit of the shine off of Gabriel Davis. But honestly, I think because of the pass heaviness of that offense and because of Josh Allen's willingness to target Gabriel Davis, on the boundary, especially in the red zone, as we saw many times against the Chiefs in that epic playoff game, I don't worry too much about how that would affect him. Let me ask you guys: would you be stunned if Gabriel Davis is the highest scoring receiver in the Bills' offense this year?
I would be surprised. I don't know if I'd be stunned, but I'd be surprised if it's not Diggs. So, how about you, Shawn?
I think the Bills are so similar to what Aaron Rodgers and the Packers did for all those years, where we see the number 2, the number 3 receivers potentially in any given year can score a huge number of touchdowns. And the one thing that makes you worry a little bit about the situation there in Buffalo is just that the Bills have been a little bit reluctant to go with Davis, despite how unbelievable he's been. Right. He came in as an underrated prospect. They get this great value on him. He goes out there and plays extremely well, and then they want to go with Emmanuel Sanders, right? And so that part of it is always a little bit scary, but there's no question that there's so much value here. I mean, if Gabriel Davis led the NFL in touchdowns, I don't think that would surprise anybody. And if he leads the NFL in touchdowns, Stephon Diggs is going to have to get back to the 2020 role that Denny, you referenced in the previous show, in order to beat him. So definitely a possibility there. I think for Crowder too, it probably helps that Duke Johnson is the space back instead of JD McKissic, where McKissic could have been somebody that they really incorporated heavily underneath. Johnson, I think, is more roster filler, and we'll see if our guy Devin Singletary gets hit by one of these rookie backs still. So
right, yeah. I mean, if Singletary survives the draft, I think I'll be very bullish on him. Do we subscribe to running back targets being a quarterback stat at all? Because Josh Allen has really never thrown to running backs out of the backfield. Not that much anyway.
Josh Allen is kind of the opposite of Phillip Rivers. So whatever Phillip Rivers will do for the running back, Allen's a little bit of the opposite. So that's why I think when we're talking about this, I think Singletary might still not get the passing work that we're hoping maybe this year, but I could see that going the way of Jamison Crowder, which I think then boosts his value a little bit more. We've seen Crowder produce with the Jets. Kind of one of those guys kind of fits into the Edelman or Jarvis Landry role, like you were kind of hinting at earlier. And I think what you've mentioned there about it being, quarterback driven, I think we've seen that with a number of quarterbacks that they're more reluctant to do that. And I think the way this offense wants to go is down the field rather than side to side. And I think that might help Crowder in this.
Yeah, agree.
I had this really fun article about JD McKissic to Buffalo that because of the pace that I worked at and getting it ready, it never published because obviously it goes back to Washington there. And exactly to your point. I mean, Josh Allen leads the NFL or is top 2 in terms of quarterback rushes on third down, that translates into being near the bottom in terms of passes to the running back on third down. I don't think McKissic there was going to be a great fit. I also don't think it was going to hurt Singletary very much, because you look at his explosion down the stretch and his EP numbers jumped, but the receiving EP portion of that wasn't a huge component. Now, it always makes a difference, right? And you can always look at that and say, when Zach Moss wasn't out there taking touches away, Singletary scored more points. And so anytime that you bring in a running back, but some of that is going to come down to, who we have out there during the season and whether the number 2 actually gets hurt or gets completely banished to the sidelines. We don't know that ahead of time. And I think that element of it comes into play a little bit more maybe than people think, where, looking at the number 2 early on, but Singletary is not going to score how he did over the last month of the season and then the playoffs, because there's a fluky touchdown element on that anybody who's been playing Singletary for the previous years knows was not a big part of what he was doing up to that point. But right. I do like him. I hope it works for 2022. Are you comfortable taking Singletary where he is?
Let's see. He's going in the 8th round. Is that right?
Definitely in that range.
Yeah.
7 to 9.
Yeah. I mean, right now, yeah, I'd much rather. So he's going after Chris Carson, according to this ADP, which is pretty wild. After Tony Pollard, and I would take Singletary over either of those guys. So, yeah, I guess I am kind of bullish on that ADP. I did just related to what you were talking about the piece that you never got to publish, which is a shame. Maybe you can work that into a different article, because I'd like to see it. But I did a little study for NBC Sports Edge last year, looking at mobile quarterbacks and their history with passing to running backs, and you won't be shocked to know that they don't do it. It's just it's very low rates of targeting running backs, from Lamar Jackson to Jalen Hurts to Josh Allen. They take off rather, and Deshaun Watson is another one. So they take off and get the first down with their feet, and that works just fine from a real football standpoint. But it's the Phillip Rivers and the Matt Ryans and stuff. They're the ones dumping it off. I think we have to keep that in mind when we're considering a PPR upside over running back.
Did you enjoy that clip? Make sure you hit that subscribe button to get more content from RotoViz. And of course, you can check out full-length podcasts at rotoviz.com/podcast. Available on all podcast platforms. Check out our wide range of content. Once again, rotoviz.com/podcast.